I have always enjoyed superhero movies, so it's unsurprising to me that The Incredibles by Pixar is one of my favorite shows. If you're not familiar, it's a fun story about a family who all have superpowers, but try with mixed results to live as just ordinary humans in the suburbs. There's a line early in the show where Mr. Incredible, the dad, Robert Parr, Mr. Incredible is being interviewed. He's low-key complaining about having to save the world over and over again, as superheroes do. He quips, "Sometimes I just want it to stay saved for a little bit." In my weaker moments, I confess to feeling as if the fate of the world depends on me. I can resonate with Mr. Incredible's comment. Now, clearly this is not true, but with so much going on all the time, it's easy to feel what Brené Brown terms overwhelm. That feeling that you're constantly one step behind, that there's always more to do, more people to save, more people to see, more that's needed of you, more that the world in general needs. Some wear the never-ending demands on time and energy as a badge. Ask them how they're doing, and the first thing they'll say is, "Man, I'm busy." The unspoken claim being that busyness means something good, that they're more productive, they have more money, they have more enjoyment, that they're sucking more of the marrow out of life. And honestly, some people are pretty good at being busy, getting a lot done, no matter how short the wick on their candle. On the surface, Jesus can seem like this. He could appear to us like this. Jesus seems to be on the go quite a bit. Everywhere he goes, stuff happens. Big things happen. Read the stories, and it feels like every couple of minutes he's popping out a miracle here or there. In fact, I might even call Jesus the master of the on-the-way miracle. Let me explain what I mean by that. Jesus sets out walking from one village to the next. Before he gets to the town, a crowd surrounds him. They bring the sick, the hungry, the desperate. Or maybe he's got in a boat and he's crossing over a lake. When he gets to the shore, a crowd forms. They're waiting for him. A person calls out to him, or he hears of somebody in need. In story after story, whether he's walking or taking a boat or however he's getting from place to place, when he's headed from one place, he's almost always detoured to another. Story after story, each time he gets interrupted, lives are changed. It can read like miracle after miracle. Let me just give you again an example. Consider the on-the-way miracle involving a girl drawing her final breath and a woman who has been ill for a very long time. Again, as I've mentioned, he's been in a boat, he's crossed over a lake, he's gone to the other shore. And in Mark chapter 5, verse 22, we share that as Jesus leaves the boat, one of the synagogue leaders, right, one of these religious leaders, his name is Jairus, he comes and he sees Jesus, he falls at his feet. It says, he pleaded earnestly with him, "My little girl is dying. Please come and put your hands on her so that she will be healed and live." Now, we have no evidence that Jesus has crossed the lake to heal this dying girl. Presumably, he's got some other business. He's doing some other work. Presumably, he has another reason to be traveling. This synagogue leader, Jairus' appeal is an interruption. Right? Jesus is on the way, and as he's going from place to place, he's interrupted with this appeal. "Please come and save my child." What does Jesus do? If we continue in the story of Mark, Mark 5, chapter 5, verse 24, we pick up the story this way. Jairus has come, Jesus got out of the boat. What's Jesus do? So, Jesus went with him. A large crowd followed, and they pressed around him, and a woman was there who had been subject to bleeding for 12 years. She had suffered a great deal under the care of many doctors and had spent all that she had. Yet, instead of getting better, she grew worse. When she heard about Jesus, she came up behind him in the crowd and touched his cloak, because she thought, if I could just touch his clothes, I will be healed. Immediately, her bleeding stopped, and she felt in her body that she was freed from her suffering. At once, Jesus realized that power had gone out from him. He turned around in the crowd and asked, "Who touched my clothes?" "You see the people crowding around you," his disciples answered, "and yet you can ask, 'Who touched me?'" But Jesus kept looking around to see who had done it. Then the woman, knowing what had happened to her, came and fell at his feet, and trembling with fear, told him the whole truth. He said to her, "Daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace and be freed from your suffering." Friends, this is the word of God for the people of God, and we say, thanks be to God. There's a pattern here. Notice the pattern. Again, Jesus is going from place to place. He's going about his business, and he's interrupted. He agrees to help, but on the way, he is further interrupted. I mean, it must be frustrating. Just imagine being Jesus. You're trying to get some work done, and everywhere you go, people keep interrupting you. He's got an important mission. Jesus claimed in Luke 4, verse 18 and 19, he's quoting the Old Testament prophet Isaiah. This is what Jesus says his work is. He says, "The Spirit of the Lord is on me because he has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim freedom for the prisoners and recovery of sight for the blind, to set the oppressed free, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor." This is his work. This is his mission. This is what he's about. This is his business. 3 times, Jesus states that the Spirit has anointed him, right? God is involved in this. The Spirit has anointed him to proclaim, to announce the time for God's saving purposes had come. Like the Blues Brothers many years later, Jesus is on a mission from God. It's important work. Jesus does not say, hear what he does not say. He does not say that he has come to cure those suffering from all sorts of diseases. He does not claim he has come to cast out demons. He does not mention feeding multitudes of people. He quotes Isaiah, but it does not reference raising anyone from the dead. It's almost like when Jesus makes this statement about what he's here to do, I can almost hear Jesus trying to say, pay attention. I am here to let you know what God is up to tell you God is about to do some amazing things, right? He makes this announcement. It's this proclamation. He's here to say, God is moving. Watch, here it comes. So how frustrating it must have been to find that everywhere he goes to tell that story, everywhere he goes to make this proclamation, he gets interrupted. Maybe you've had an experience like that. Maybe you've been one of these people that have been doing some work from home and some work in the office. Many of us here at the church that I serve have been working remotely. Why? Because we get interrupted all the time when we're in our offices. I'm working on these important sermons, and somebody randomly drops by. They want to talk about whatever's going on in their life, whatever's going on in the world, right? And I'm not the only one. Constantly you get a phone call or somebody coming and knocking on your door, or somebody just dropping by from the community. Constant interruptions. Maybe you've had a similar experience. Maybe you do a little work from home because there you can get some peace and quiet. You can just focus and get your work done, right? Nose to the grindstone, that kind of stuff. People are constantly interrupting Jesus' mission. It's undeniable. Story after story, right? He's trying to go from town to town to proclaim this good news, and everywhere he goes, he gets interrupted. So, why does Jesus allow himself to be interrupted so much? Why does he go along with it? If his mission is so important, why does he allow the distractions? Well, it starts with his attitude. Instead of being an interruption of his mission, catch this, friends, listen. Instead of being an interruption of his mission, Jesus seems to believe the interruptions are the mission. Serving others is not a distraction from the main thing. It is the main thing. Consider Jesus entering a town to announce that God is restoring all of creation. Right? Imagine Jesus has made this proclamation. I am here. Spirit has anointed me. I'm going to tell the good news. He goes to a town and he goes to do that work. Can Jesus talk to anybody in that town about good news if they're hungry or sick or beat down? Can Jesus claim that God's favor has come if people are fighting spiritual and political wars with those seeking to do them harm? Can Jesus proclaim anything if the people are unable to see or hear or walk or talk? Can we? So on his way to teach, on his way to do this important work, Jesus is interrupted by a religious leader whose daughter is dying. As he's going to help that young girl, he is further interrupted by a woman who dares to touch his cloak. And he allows the interruption. He makes himself available to these people as his proclamation of the good news. By being interruptible, Jesus does more than talk about grace. Jesus embodies and enacts God's saving purposes. I wish it weren't so. But I suspect if I would have been one of Jesus' followers, one of these disciples, I would have bristled at each interruption, and I would have grumbled, can't these people just leave him alone? Don't they know he's got important work to do? Of course, in Jesus' mind, right? Jesus is thinking his attitude. For Jesus, these interruptions, these people are his work. Again, consider the story from Mark. Not every dying child is saved. Not every long-term illness is cured. Jesus does not wave his hands and make everything better for everyone everywhere. Why not? It's within his power to do. I fully believe that. He is fully God. It is within his power to wipe out every disease, to feed every hungry person, to cast out every demon. It's within his power to raise everyone from the dead. Why doesn't he do it? I do not know. I do not know why some tumors shrink and others grow. I do not know why some hearts fail and others can be repaired. I do not know why some suffer illness without a cure and others find relief from their ailments. What I do know is in being interruptible, Jesus signals the good news is not just for some, but for all. How can I make such a claim, admitting that some are cured while others are not? The text includes a detail that I have in all my previous readings overlooked. And it could be that you would miss it if you only knew what I've told you so far today. So let's get a little deeper here. Let's go a little bit further. If we keep reading in Mark, right? We read Mark 5, just a few verses there. But if we keep reading, we find the young girl dies before Jesus can get to her. As a father, I've always focused on the father's desperation, Jairus' desperation, and the immediacy of the girl's death. She's not just a little under the weather, right? She's not suffering from seasonal allergies. She's in the active process of dying. In fact, before Jesus can get from the shore, even given the little interruption that the story records, before he can get from the shore to the house, she has died. The woman's condition is also quite dramatic. Bleeding without any relief, her condition increasingly getting worse. She's tried everything and used all of her resources. And again, friends, maybe you can identify with that. Maybe you've been in a situation where you've tried everything. You've poured everything out. You've used up all the bank account, and still things have not gotten better. I focused on that piece of the story. Again, she's not cut her leg shaving, right? She's been bleeding for a long time. She's ritually unclean. That's what it would have meant for her, that she would not have been allowed around people, that she's in this crowd touching Jesus. It's a taboo. It's against the rules. She's been cut off from her community and has been for what must have felt like a lifetime. I focused on the drama of these moments. What I missed when focusing on those particular situations is a detail. Again, you would have to keep reading a little bit in Mark. The detail is this, the number 12 that appears. We're told the woman has been bleeding for 12 years. If we keep reading again in Mark, we discover the young girl who is restored to life, and we learn that she is 12 years old. Catch this, friends. We don't know their names. The bleeding woman, right? That's what we call her. This woman with this bleeding. Jairus' daughter, we don't know their names, but we know how long the woman has been sick, and we know the age of the girl. The numbers are important details inviting us to consider a bigger picture and a deeper meaning. Here in our season of Lent, we've been lifting up the number 40. 40 is an important number in our faith tradition, especially during this season, right? We remember Noah being on the boat 40 days and 40 nights. Elijah praying for the people of Israel for 40 days. The Exodus wandering for 40 years in the wilderness. Jesus being tempted and tried in his own wilderness for 40 days and 40 nights. 40 is an important number. Here we have another number. The number is 12. And when 12 appears, Just like 40, we should have all these associations. When the number 12 appears, it's almost as if the writer is saying, pay attention, dear reader. When 12 appears, we should think about the 12 tribes of Israel. In other words, the whole people of God. I do not know why of all the people surrounding Jesus, this woman is healed. I do not know why, of all the children who could have been gifted new life, this girl wakes up. What I do know is that Jesus sets out to preach his mission. He sets out to preach. He's been anointed to preach the news of God's restoration of all things. And he is constantly interrupted in that mission by those who wind up living restored lives. What I do know is that each miracle on the way, each interruption is meant to point us to the God who is working to heal all people. Not some, not random ones, not those who possess some incredible faith. I mean, I could be wrong about this, but in that number 12, I believe the message is that the good news truly is for all. What does this have to do with you? What does this have to do with us? Well, first, can we celebrate the good news is for us? That this is meant to point us to the understanding that yes, some are healed and some are not in the ways that we understand or the ways that we might like. But that the good news that God is restoring all things is meant to be good news for all of creation, all of us. Can we celebrate that? And if so, maybe the next thing we could do, if you're following Jesus, if you want to live the life of Christ, if you want to follow in his footsteps, do what he does, live as he lives, if serving as Jesus served is what you want to be about, if that reflects your attitude, then the challenge becomes one of availability, of being interruptible like Jesus. Right? We might want to serve, but until we make ourselves available to serve, right, that's the next piece. We won't be able to serve. It's not just about our intention, but it's about making ourselves interruptible. The serving challenge that we're exploring right now, that resource asks us to look at what it means to be available to serve those in need as we navigate a busy, hurried, and chaotic world. What does it look to be available to serve given all the busyness of life? I want to suggest the only way we're going to be able to serve, even if it's our desire to do so, even if we have the best of intentions, is to make ourselves available to do so. The "man, I'm busy" folks will squirm at that, and they should. The bottom line, we cannot serve if we're unavailable to serve. So what do? What can we do? The world's crazy, it's hectic, it's busy. What do we do? This week, a possible next step for you, the next day, the next season, the next whatever time makes sense in your life, take up Dallas Willard's advice and ruthlessly eliminate hurry from your life. Take the word busyness and cross it out. It's not a badge of honor. Take a look at your calendar and consider how you're spending your time. Are you so scheduled that there's not an opportunity, there's not a place for you to be available, to be interrupted to serve? What occupies your hours? What occupies your days? Are you so committed to your schedule that you're not willing to respond to the Spirit moving in your life when these interruptions come? You can imagine Jesus getting out of the boat. Jairus comes up to him and says, "My daughter's dying. Would you please come and help?" And Jesus says, "Are you kidding me right now? I got stuff to do." But we do it in our lives all the time. How are you spending your hours? How are you spending your days? Look at your calendar. Consider your schedule. Are you available to serve? Do you have margin to be interrupted? Read through the serving challenge if you are participating in that with us as a church. And try some of those suggested practices. A time inventory, right? Kind of journal out your day and figure out, how are you spending your time? Where are the places you might eliminate hurry, eliminate busyness? Where might you reclaim some space to say, "God, I'm just going to be open here. Whatever happens, happens," right? Could a miracle be waiting for you to cancel the class or forgo the opportunity or set aside that badge of busyness? Ruthlessly eliminate hurry and let us find out. Let's pray. God, indeed, I confess that I don't like to be interrupted. I got important work to do. And I believe most of the time that work is about you, and it's about the things that I think you've called me to do. But God, anytime I put the doing of ministry above the people you've called me to love, would you help me to see where I've gotten off track there? Would you help me to understand that those interruptions are divine appointments, they're opportunities to share your grace. That you've called us all to proclaim the good news. And proclaiming the good news oftentimes looks like serving. Would you help us to find the ways you'd have us serve? You wouldn't just give us the intention, right? That we wouldn't just think about the good idea that serving is. Would you help us become available to serve? Would you help us to find the space to be interrupted? In the name of Christ, I pray these things. Amen.